Welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking about the new Malignant ring, Eredia's Inexorable Will, and this has just been added in the middle of Season of Blood, and it's good. It's going to be very good for the traditional Pulverized build. However, the other version of Pulverized that I cover in this channel, involving the Hunter Zenith variant, it will not work, and we'll go over both of these. Let's show the Pulverized build, the more traditional version, and why it will work first, and then we'll cover the Hunter Zenith and why it won't. So you can see I've got the Werebear skills, traditionally Trample, Debilitating Roar, Grizzly Rage, Pulverize, and what we're talking about here is this ring slot here. I've put Aspect of the Stampede. This does nothing for the build, and this is just to show you that Aspect of the Umbral is not needed for this build. And that makes sense, because that's what led to the Hunter Zenith variant, was Aspect of the Umbral. The question was, do we need it? And we swapped in Hunter Zenith, kind of reconfigured some skills, and came up with essentially a better version. However, we need to go back to this original version because we can't take out Aspect of Retaliation, and since the new item is a ring, we have to pick between these two. Aspect of Retaliation can also be placed on the gloves or the weapon slot, but we don't want to do that. Aspect of the Earth Sign Horror transforms Pulverize into an Earth skill. Does a little bit of lingering AoE damage, don't care so much about that. Transforming it into an Earth skill allows us to get huge benefit from our skill tree, huge benefit from our Paragon tree, so we need to keep this. Shockwave Aspect makes Pulverize travel the length of the screen. We also need this, and ironically, we actually need this to survive. It's the ability to clear the screen quickly that helps this character and this build survive. It's a frequently asked question. We'll show you that in the gameplay. You need to make sure that when you Pulverize, you're doing it with meaning, so to speak. You don't want to waste your spirit. You want to make sure that you have as many targets lined up as possible and take advantage of that, and that's how you're going to kind of keep your spirit full. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is tier 74. Should be no problem, and we're going to kind of move through basically as quickly as we can. That's the Godslayer crown, pulling everything in. We will also be doing that once we have the new ring, and it's only going to get better. So I'm choosing not to Pulverize there. I'm letting the mobs kind of come back, and sometimes backtracking is a decent option with this build. Just putting yourself in a corner is also an option, provided you're not going to go down. Think of killing the enemies with as few Pulverizes as possible. Okay, you do tons of damage, so there's absolutely no reason to use them unless you can clear a large amount of mobs, or otherwise you are going to die. You're also highly dependent on overpowers, so the more frequently you Pulverize, the less of your Pulverizes that will be benefiting from overpower. So if you think about wanting to capitalize on overpower every time you Pulverize, there's no harm in delaying as long as your character is alive, and you'll see that it's so far I've been in no jeopardy of dying. So let's go ahead and up the ante, since you can see that clearly my spirit is not having any issues at all. Let's go up to a higher tier difficulty and we'll jump there now. Alright, so we're in a tier 96, and I have done some higher dungeons prior to recording. You'll see that at times I have no issues with spirit, and at other times you can be a little starved and you need to kind of kite or dance around a little bit. But overall, once we get the new ring, this is just going to help with us in our ability to clear. When everything gets pulled in, we have a lot of time to reposition ourselves, make sure that we get good value out of each Pulverize that we use. On top of that, it's going to just do a large amount of physical damage that may kill the enemies outright just from popping Grizzly Rage and then moving forward to another pack. So here I'm going to back up and just let everything kind of funnel. Try to pick off the suppressor mob here when possible, and that'll open the room up. So again, this is definitely going to be sustainable without Aspect of the Umbral. And you really don't need to see much more. We'll go a little bit further just for any of the doubters, but it's going to be perfectly viable. In fact, I think the build's going to be better. It's just going to do additional damage. It's going to scale with the Godslayer's Helm. So overall, it's just going to be very nice. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people prefer the Hunter Zenith version and just find it more fun. So the negative here is, unfortunately, that build will not work. And that's because we have to put the new item in a ring slot. And that means that we're going to run Hunter Zenith. We don't get a Aspect for our rings, and we've shown why we can't replace Aspect of the Earth Sign Horror on gloves or the Shockwave Aspect on the weapon, which means we're going to lose up to 40% multiplicative damage, and I just don't think that's going to be worth it. I do think we may be able to redesign the Hunter Zenith version and potentially find another version that plays a little bit better than Pulverize, but time will tell, and we'll need to actually get the ring itself hopefully later today or the next day and kind of start tinkering with builds in order to show that off as well. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.